Right.
Hey everybody, my name's John with the Caricature Entertainment. I've got some guests out here. Hey, there's Larry. He's not doing tech support today. He's just doing moral support all the way from Rodeo, Austin. Thank you to all the people who've come in. This is the first in a big series of what we're going to call the TCE critiques. In this series, you're going to have artists like myself who have a little bit of experience breaking down some sketches, not only for the things that have been done well, but also ways that we can improve, because that's what we should do as artists is always be lifelong learners and keep growing. So Larry has volunteered to be our first critique in the series. Before we begin, I always want to say, if you have any questions or comments, you can always put that in the chat. You can email or you can text. And for those of you who have an interest in submitting drawings for show, we also will take your drawings as long as you send us the actual sketch and then a picture of the sketch with the guest. In this series, you'll also see drawings from our Escondido Mall location, where we have some new, fresh artists who are going to be growing and learning the wonderful world of caricature and retail. So I'm going to show you the pictures that Larry has volunteered for our viewing. Here's the sketch. You can see a successful composition of a couple and their dog. Good framing, solid, thick lines. Definitely a picture I'm going to frame and put somewhere in my room. Now, when I look at this drawing, I also want to look at the pictures of the guests themselves. And so this is what our guests look like. Now, this was drawn live at a retail location in our Bow Vista location I'm going to say, looks like maybe October or November. I see pumpkin patch, so probably October. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely October.
All right. So the focus of critique one is going to be a method of drawing that I call curves versus straight. This is a technique that I learned during my animation years. And so when I think of curves versus straights, really what I'm looking at is uh, the way that you in your sketch are using them to balance each other, but each in its own way have a certain visual dialogue. So when I think of curves, I'm thinking of something soft. So if I draw a nice curve here, curves can also be fleshy. And normally when I think of curves, I'm thinking of something organic, muscles, skin. Um, in the contrast, when I look at a straight line, I'm thinking of something stiff, uh, where the curve is more fleshy. I could think of this as bony, where a curved line has the visual interest of something organic. Here, with a straight line, you're thinking of things that are more rigid in form. Okay. So over time, when I have studied animation, there's certain illusions that these lines create. Uh, when we think of curves, because of the soft, fleshy organicness, we also associate it with comfort, something that we can say a curved line, uh, it'll represent something cute. Where if I draw straight lines, the contrast here is that number one, it's contacting flat surfaces. So something against something. Maybe you're pulling something a little tighter as it comes to a conical tip, or that you're stretching something. So, for example, here, I might play a straight line versus a curve. Okay. Now, all of these ways that I use curves and uh, straights is a great way to play into your picture. So even though I'm not pre-planning this, I see this as a way to create that illusion. So a curve, here's a straight into a straight. Same thing here. I'm going to do a curve into a straight. That straight, I'm going to contrast with another curve. Okay. Now, all of these are also playing off each other. So I kind of fall back to like an 80-20 rule. If I can get 80% curves to 20% straight, or 80% straight to 20% curves, I'm blocking in uh, these lines to make visual interest. So as I'm looking at the sample, I'm going to put a curve over here, uh, and I'm going to contrast that with a straight line over here. I might give a curve here, and then I'll play into some more straights over here. So in that same visual space, let's get some curves over here, more curves into a straight. This out of the way. Curves against a straight. All right. So even though I haven't started to put in the details of the face, if I'm looking at, go back to the picture, you can see it how I see it. If you look at the gentleman's face, he is just on the left side. He is just nothing but curves. He is creating this very soft allusion to his face and to his hair. But because he also has a very long head to neck, very little jaw alignment, to create that illusion of length, straight lines will play up to that form. Now you look at her, because she's doing the classic part right down the middle. A lot of young ladies now are using the hair to block in their face. So instead of drawing the waves, play into what she's actually visually trying to tell you, which is, hey, I may have cheeks that I'm not happy with, or I don't want to play up how curvaceous my face is. So in the contrast of shapes, curves versus straights, she's using the lines of her hair. Oops. So when I look at her face, again, I'm breaking down what she's already started to frame out for me. The great curves to the top of her head, contrasting the great length of her long hair. So all of these, a lot of people who are already telling me their story before they sit down, all I'm doing is amplifying that to create that contrast with curves and straights. So looking at their actual features, once I've got the base shape, now I can go in and I look at his face, and I'm going to see he has a really lengthy forehead and a really lengthy neck. And his features seem to be compressed comparative to the size of his head. But I see a lot of great straights versus length, or straights versus curves opportunity. The straight of his nose against the curves of his glasses, the straight aspects of his top lip versus the bottom curve. But even in his teeth, the straight of the gap between his teeth and jaw. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So let's go ahead and we're just gonna go right into drawing him. So right back into their face. So I'm gonna start with the and Larry made this choice as well. He's got kind of that widow's peak. So let's go ahead and give him the curves. So in my head, if I get curves, immediately I'm thinking straight lines. If I have the glasses, first I'm going to go with the straight arc of, or a straight line of his nose, curve it with his, the bulbous part of his nose. We'll give him the glasses. So straight to curve. Now we talked about his teeth. So I'm going to go straight to curve. The gap between his jaw. He has some irregularities in his teeth. So we'll do straight and just amplify it with the curves. So in my head, every time I'm drawing, I'm thinking, okay, contrast, 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 just using two items, straight lines, curves, straight lines, curves, straight lines, curves, curves, straight lines, curves, straight lines. Okay. Now for her, she's also giving me a lot of signals, so I will do the same. Now she has, I'm just going to give it a kind of a cartoon nose here, just to keep playing up straights and curves. So the bottom of her eyes, straights, curve, straights, curves. Now, interesting enough, she's really emphasizing the curve of her lips. So we'll do the same, but to contrast it, there's the straight line. Give her the curve of the smile. Straight line. Curve of the bottom lip. Okay. Now, I've done their faces. Pretty simple, but I was kind of saving the dog, right? So let's see if I can do the same thing with the dog. So I'm going to give him his eyes. Now, this looks like some type of Shih Tzu, maybe doodle, but I'm going to play the same thing here. So with the snout, straight lines, I'm sorry, curve line, straight line, curve line, straight line, curve line, straight line. There's a smile. Let's go ahead and give him some hair. And one more straight lines, curved lines. Okay. All right, so dog, we've got people. And this is not a featurette on eyes, so I'm just gonna generically put them in. So that's the overall form. Now, as you're starting to see, as I'm putting in some of the sub details, hair, I'm still thinking the same. So I'm going to go curve to straight, curve to straight. Just follow the forms that I've already created. straight, straight, straight. Let's break this hair. Straight, straight. Let's overemphasize how straight her hair is. There we go. Now, because I did a lot of straights in her hair, guess what I'm doing in his hair? Contrast. Curves, 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 curves. Okay. Now, when we're looking at Larry's drawing, you can see composition is correct. There are aspects of this relationship, straights versus curves. But if I were to give it a percent, I'm thinking maybe it's more 90-10 straights to curves. But even without the practice, if you look at his hair, you can see he was thinking the curves to the hair, contrasting that with, you can see without understanding the contrast, he has the straights in the end section of her hair. When you look at the dog, you can see there was a lot of potential with fur to play off curves versus straights, where I would probably say with his dog, it's 100% curves with zero contrast to straights. So we look at one, here's the sketch. So we can do a lot of different things. This process of curves versus straight, it really does come with a lot of understanding of the anatomy that's going on. So even in the few moments that I have when I'm introducing myself to the guest, if I tell my opening jokes, I do use that time also to start looking at that structure, looking at where the weight of this picture is going to be. A couple things that I am trying to avoid is I don't want my drawing to come across as too mushy. Mushy might being, again, laying too high on curves, too soft, too fleshy, too organic. The flip side of it is I also don't want it to be too rigid, almost robotic looking. So if I only stay in straight lines, now I'm looking more like a box. So even when I do see someone like this gentleman's face, that may come across as a very straight, elongated structure, I do want to find ways to pull in that contrasting form. And the after. All right, folks. This is an opportunity for us to share sketching from a different point of view. In each of the following sessions, I will go back to that Magnificent Seven, where I'm going to look at everyone's sketches. I'll tell you something you're doing well. I'll tell you something that you could do again, and then maybe even show you how to do it this way. In this sketch, I chose to work on how to get cute using straights versus curves. In future sessions, I may choose to go into how to exaggerate and make funny. I may choose to showcase how to draw in a particular style. I can show perspective. I can show composition, line weight, or even color. So all you have to do now is feel free to volunteer your sketches, both live or studio, and we will use that in future sessions. Hey, I want to give a special thank you to Larry for not only participating by being here, but also for volunteering his sketch to be in the first in the series. Also, I'm looking forward to drawing redraws with critique for those artists drawing at our new brick and mortar location at the North County Mall in Escondido, California. So before I leave, looking at the chat, if there's any questions, comments, or concerns, you can always text, email. Again, my name's John. Thank you to Larry, Kim, and unidentified Zoom user for jumping in. This will become a YouTube. Thanks very much, guys. I'll see you tomorrow for round 2.